Derek Scarzella is with us here just now. How are you doing?
Very good, and thank you for having me, Toby.
Now, you've got a new book out at the moment called Knuckle Crack Bone. So, what is the basic idea of that book?
No, absolutely. So it's basically about three mafia enforcers
Mm,
who basically have enough of the life they're living, right? It's full of
yeah.
violence and sex and drugs, and while that can be a lot of fun sometimes, it gets to be a bit too much for them, and they plan one big score to basically free themselves from the family they've been working in for a number of years.
Yeah. And here's a bit of an ignorant question, really. Who actually are the Mafia? Because we hear that word a lot, but I don't really know who they are. Are they real?
Well, they're definitely real,
Yeah.
and I'm Italian,
Mm,
so growing up, I dealt with a lot of those stereotypes of like my grandpa used to run a small business, and people would ask me, "Oh, he's in the mafia. He dresses up nice.
mm,
He wears a suit and a hat and a long coat." And I'm like, well, that's just how people dressed in the 50s, and he sort of never
mm,
stopped. But and also like, so that was on my mother's side. On my father's side, he was actually from Egypt, even though he was Italian. There
yeah.
was like an Italian contingent in Egypt that lived there for a long time and then emigrated to the United States. But so I don't have any personal history with it, but it's sort of a part of that Italian American legacy, right?
Yeah.
And my first novel was about crime, but it was like inner city crime, like a different vibe. And for this, I sort of wanted to reinterpret that legacy my own way
Yeah.
and just go from there. But it's definitely real.
Mm.
There's the Indregnetta in Naples, and there's a couple others. I don't remember the specific names, but it's still around and it's still active.
Yeah, and I take it you will have had to do a lot of research about the Mafia if you don't have any kind of direct links to it.
Yeah, well, thankfully, I don't have any direct links to it. Even though it would be nice when bills come around to pay. Sort of wish I had some illicit income coming in,
Yeah.
but but no, I did a lot of research, and a huge help was actually a cop who gets a shout out in the front of the book. His
Mm.
name's DJ, still a friend of mine, and he helped me a lot with the logistics of the novel.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reason it makes sense is because of him, but also researching like the international mechanics of crime,
Mm.
right? Like the book centers around drug deals that keep getting bigger and bigger. Like that's a part of the plot.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with the Indregnetta, if I'm saying that right. It's a very funny pronunciation, but there's a couple of other big mafia families that have a rich history. And a lot of it's international trafficking, sex
Mm.
trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking. It's all the classics,
Yeah.
right? And understanding those logistics helps me get the superstructure of my novel in place.
Yeah. And how long did the book actually take you to write then?
I want to say it took me a year or two,
Mm. Wow.
with stops and starts and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, and then there was actually getting it published. So
Yeah.
it's been a bit of a journey,
Mm.
but I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the cover, the whole thing,
Yeah.
from stem to stern, and really excited to get it in people's hands.
Yeah, and I like the cover. It's got three skeletons in suits. One of them's got a gun, one of them's got money, one of them's smoking. I guess that kind of sums up the vibe of these mafia people quite well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of these rare instances where I really want someone to judge my book by its cover. You know,
Yeah.
I was actually involved in the concept of it and went through a lot of different options for it, and I'm really proud with what they settled on.
Yeah. And you say you don't have many links to the mafia, but the picture behind you suggests that your head may be twisted in some way. I don't know.
Yeah, well, this is a piece of art from a friend of mine a long time ago.
Hmm.
She actually gave it to another friend who then gifted it to me,
Wow.
and it just has a lot of sentimental value. If you can't see, it's a
Yeah.
shark going after a mermaid, and the mermaid's reaching out to the viewer. I think it's actually very arresting as an image. But it's also from back in the days when I was in a band in the mid 2000s. A lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll type stuff, but it's got a lot of personal history for me as well.
Hmm. Or if you look at it another way, it might be a shark throwing up a mermaid because the meat tastes very nice.
Yeah, that's the PG version.
Yeah. And did you release this book after the pandemic and perhaps had a little bit more time this last year to write
It
it?
was, it was actually like right before.
Mm.
I mean, it was right before the world changed.
Yeah.
So I know that's a while ago now, but it's still new in terms of book stuff, you know. So it's been really weird because the book was about it's another component of the novel is the 2008 financial crisis, right?
Mm.
Like one of the ideas was, well, how's the mafia reacting to this crisis
Yeah.
of finances? Because they own homes, they have credit, you know what I mean? All this stuff.
Mm.
And one of them, not to spoil too much, complains about the 401k disappearing, and they actually had to get back to work because of that. And now we're in this time where this new crisis has hit.
Mm.
And I believe we're getting out of it,
Yeah.
thankfully. Like it's been a year and a half,
Mm.
hasn't it? And
Yeah,
we're sort
pretty
of used
much.
to the world changing, you know what I mean? But it's been really funny revisiting that and then how I guess the book became relevant again in that
Yeah,
sense.
it's interesting because this is probably a much bigger financial crisis that we're in right now. So the
Yeah.
mafia will be reacting to this times 10, probably.
Well, that's actually one thing I do want to talk to with like other authors and other crime authors and
Yeah.
whatnot. I have my own YouTube channel you can check out. I might as well shout that out right now.
Mm.
Action a Go Go. There's a website. There's a YouTube channel. I want to start
Yeah.
doing interviews with people. Maybe have you on it one day
Ooh,
if you want.
I'd love that. Yeah.
But I'm really interested in the future of crime
Yeah.
now because I mean you can only imagine what the cartels and what the mafia is doing right now in response
Mm.
to all this, like whether it's new regulations or limitations on shipping, or maybe
Yeah.
it's gotten better for them in a
Mm.
lot of ways that we don't even understand. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of potential there for good stories. I mean, hopefully, people figure out ways to stop them as well. But,
Yeah.
c'est la vie.
Suppose maybe it's easier to do crime now because wearing masks is normal now, so you can cover your face and not get noticed by the police.
Yeah, well, one of my friends' fiance actually now was tweeting about how she never thought that people would be excited to see her put on a mask before walking into a liquor store. Like that's the sea change we've gone through in society.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you think that you will perhaps write a sequel to this?
No, no, I think this is a standalone novel in that
Mm.
sense. Just like my first novel was standalone, the second one,
Yeah.
there is actually, if anybody's a fan of Marvel movies, I think
Mm.
everybody is now, but
Yeah.
it's sort of a shared universe type
Mm.
thing. Like one
Interesting.
character from my first novel shows up in this novel,
Huh.
and I do want to write a third crime novel.
Mm.
So I wrote about like my first novel, The Vicious Game, was about a person who wanted to be a rapper and a El Salvadorian enforcer in MS-13, right?
Mm.
And how their lives sort of intertwined. This one was just about mafia enforcers and how they wanted to get out of the life. My third one is actually supposed to be about a corrupt cop
Mm.
who goes on some pretty serious undercover work on his own sort of thing. And it's sort of funny how that I've had it cooking for a while, but then the defund the police movement happened,
Oh, yeah.
and so maybe I'll try and weave some of that in there somehow.
Yeah.
But I'm also working on a sci-fi novel right
Ooh.
now. I'm really working to finish that. It's completely different than my crime novels,
Huh.
and I've got a couple other comics I'm trying to get off the ground, stuff like that. So I'm going in a lot of different directions, but it's also exciting creatively. I don't want to pigeonhole myself to any one thing, just want to keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. The Corrupt Coppers is quite a cool thing because over here we have a TV show called Line of Duty, which seems to be the most popular show of all time with the
Really?
ratings. And
Wow.
it's all about bent coppers and stuff. It's a great watch.
Yeah. Sounds wonderful. It's probably on, you think, I don't know, maybe it's on Netflix in the States or something. They get a lot of international shows.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have BritBox at all? Has that made it to America? Because I think it's on there.
Maybe, maybe. Is that a service in the United States for TV show? I may have heard about it.
I think it might have been released in the US, but it's basically made by the BBC and ITV and Channel 4 all together, put all their shows on it. And I would maybe imagine that it would be more popular in America because we can kind of watch the shows that are on it anyway, I suppose.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's so many Anglophiles, I think they call them in the States. So, like I've got a buddy of mine who is born in Scotland but raised in England. And every time we go out, people just start talking to him in a British accent for some reason because they just love the culture so much, even though they're clearly not British. But we'll be at a bar or something. They'll walk up, hey, mate, how you doing, mate? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh, my God, man, come on.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot of people, when they hear a voice that they're not used to hearing, they like to imitate it, which I guess it's a nice form of flattery.
No, I think 100%. It's just, I don't know. It just, sometimes it comes off a bit crass to me when it's just like random and you're meeting a stranger and you start like doing that. But yeah, you know, I mean, I love British culture and whatnot. The whole thing. Where are you at specifically? Because I want to guess, but I don't want to assume anything.
Oh, well, I'm in Scotland specifically, yeah.
Okay. I actually have a little bit of Scotch in my background on my grandmother's side, McIntyre. Even though I think some people say it's more Irish than Scottish, but you know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, the copying of accents, because I don't know where you draw the line, but you wouldn't do it to an Indian person, would you?
I know, exactly, right? the racial lines of that. But no, I always love the Scottish accent. One of my favorite movies of all time, maybe you hear this a lot or something, but Train Spotting.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I just love that movie so much. And it's not, I don't know, I don't know if it's the most, I don't know, what is it, an ambassador for Scottish culture sort of thing, but it's such an amazing movie.
I think it's quite an accurate depiction of us, to be honest.
Okay.
Well, where are we able to check out your book and find you everywhere?
No, absolutely. It's on Amazon. So it should be on Amazon UK, available on Amazon UK. If you want me to send you a copy, you can just reach out to me on Twitter or Facebook or anything else. Just to, again, get these out of the way, I run my own website, actionagogo.com. It's dedicated to action movie news and reviews. It has a YouTube channel. We're starting to create videos to reach out to people. And I'm available on Instagram and Twitter at actionagogo. Basically, whenever you want to reach out, chat, talk about something, go from there. And the books are available on Amazon.com. Just search for Derek Scarzella, the title Knuckle Crack Bone, or The Vicious Game, which is my first novel. Would love to see some people purchase it and give me some reviews and get talking.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. It's been great having you here.
100%, Toby. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Really love the Muppets in the background. You know, always have a soft spot in my heart. And thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation.